Tony nominee Julie Andrews may be about to withdraw her name from consideration for the Great White Way's greatest honor. We now go live to the Marquee Theater, where entertainment reporter Sharon Diesenhaus is standing by with more. Sharon.
Mike, Julie Andrews is reportedly hopping mad that she got the only nomination given to the lavish $8.5 million production she stars in of Victor Victoria. And at about 4:30 today, she is set to give a news conference that will give some indication of just how angry she is. I say they can go to hell! The woman made famous as the eternally cheery nanny, both in The Sound of Music and in Mary Poppins, is now hoppin' mad that on Monday, her show, Victor Victoria, the brainchild of her husband, Blake Edwards, was snubbed for all Tony nominations except one.
The nominees for Best Performance by a Leading Actress in a Musical: Julie Andrews, Victor Victoria.
Nominations for Best Musical, Best Book or Story, Best Choreography, Best Actor, or either Best Featured Actress or Best Featured Actor could have meant huge prestige and huge box office draw for a show that is very expensive to produce with its big cast and lavish production numbers. But this year, the Tony nominations brought a rude surprise for the cast and crew of Victor Victoria, and word on the street is that Julie Andrews may use this announcement between shows today to withdraw herself from consideration from the Tonys in protest of the standards and choices of the Tony nominating committee this year. She may also choose not to perform in the Tony Awards, which could seriously compromise the production of the Tony telecast. The conventional wisdom unofficially about the Tonys has always been that they are intended to honor artistic achievement. They are also intended to support the Broadway theater. And this year, 2 of the 4 shows that were nominated for Best Musical aren't even in production any longer, so they don't stand to benefit, while Victor Victoria definitely stands to be hurt. At the matinee today, Julie Andrews fans supported her.
It shows that she feels this very strongly about this, and I think that's great.
She's an admirable person for doing something like that. Everybody knows she's a star.
I think she feels a little bit piqued because the rest of the entertainers are excellent and they're very good in what they do.
Okay, that's Sharon Diesenhaus standing by at the Marquee Theater. Once again, Julie Andrews very upset that Victor Victoria was not chosen for additional Tony nominations here. It was chosen for her role as Best Actress in a Musical, but the other nominations did not go to Victor Victoria this year. She's scheduled to give a press conference at about 4:30 this afternoon, and New York One will have that for you and have information on this breaking story as we get it. Once again, Julie Andrews is scheduled to give a live press conference at about 4:30 this afternoon. We'll have more later on.
I did not see Victor Victoria. I did see the movie. The movie was brilliant, and I hear only good reports about Julie Andrews and the show. But listen, somebody wins, somebody loses, and if she is nominated and then receives it, she should get up, take it, and excoriate the audience if she's so disposed. That's what America's all about. But I'm not upset.
There you go. We picked, as I was saying, we were thumbing through the New York Times, the Living Arts section today. Those reports of Broadway's death were premature. It has this aerial shot of
Andrews against the Tony Awards, honoring the best and brightest of the Great White Way. Good evening. The curtain on the Wednesday matinee just came down, but right now Julie Andrews is still on stage.
The star of Victor Victoria received the only Tony nomination given to her mega musical, snubbed in all the other categories. And the angry Andrews is speaking out. Let's go live to Channel 2's Dennis Cunningham at the Marquee Theater on Broadway.
John, Michelle, first of all, yes, you're right, the matinee is over. We just had Richie Steyer come in. He was in there. Julie Andrews spoke to the audience and she spoke to the orchestra, and she turned down the Tony nomination. We've just learned that Julie Andrews has turned down her Tony nomination. Rumors have been swirling all day that she was not at all pleased with the way the show had been treated. She got an award, but no one else did, and so she decided to address the press and media, the audience, the cast members. We will have video of that in a little while, but she did turn down the award. Here's a background on why she did.
Without any delay,
Matters began to boil this past Monday morning when the Tony Award nominations were announced.
The nominees for Best Performance by a Leading Actress in a Musical.
An extremely happy and successful collaboration, which makes it especially sad that so many of my colleagues have been ignored by this year's nominating process. I could not have done this alone. I have searched my conscience and my heart, and I find that sadly, I cannot accept this nomination, and I prefer instead to stand with the egregiously overlooked.
The star was far from flattered from the moment the Tony nominations were announced on Monday afternoon. Julie Andrews was nominated for Best Performance by a Leading Lady in a Musical, but the rest of the cast of Victor Victoria was overlooked, and the play...
Every single person in her play except her. She was not nominated. And the other side of the coin, back to this season, George C. Scott, renowned for scoffing at awards, got a Best Actor Tony nomination for Inherit the Wind after he had
already closed, were nominated for Best Musical instead of Victor Victoria. Victor Victoria is directed by Julie Andrews' husband, Blake Edwards. It was Julie Andrews' first ever Tony nomination, the 60-year-old actress announcing to the audience this afternoon that she would not accept that nomination. The show's producer told me that this decision was made by Julie Andrews and Julie Andrews alone, and he said it has rallied the rest of the cast around her. Andrew Glassman, News Channel 4, reporting live at the Marquis Theater this afternoon. Matt and Sue.
Andrew, thank you. This is the 50th anniversary of the Tonys. The awards will be presented.
This is directed by her husband, produced by her husband, was not treated the way it should have been treated. So that's where we are now. We'll be back later with actual sound. We had a camera in there, but we weren't allowed to have live cameras in there. I'm live at Broadway and 46th.
All right, thank you very much, Dennis. But one quick question. Is this very Shakespearean, Much Ado About Nothing?
Well, I don't understand why she did it. I'm frankly taken aback because she's such a lady, why she would do such a thing. But then again, she sure has gotten a lot of publicity from not accepting the awards.
Big publicity.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Well, the Transit Authority isn't going to win any awards from
process. Julie Andrews was the only nominee in her Broadway show, Victor Victoria. Just moments ago, following a matinee, Andrews told the Tony Committee, "Thanks, but no thanks." Here in its entirety is a replay of that announcement.
The 1996 Tony Award nominations were announced on Monday, and I applaud all my fellow nominees, and I send them many, many congratulations. However, flattered as I am and honored to be also nominated, I have to say how deeply sad I am to be the only nominee in this extraordinary company. Victor Victoria is a collaboration between designers, choreographer, director, cast, and crew. An extremely happy and successful collaboration, which makes it especially sad that so many of my colleagues have been ignored by this year's nominating process. I could not have done this alone. I have searched my conscience and my heart, and I find that, sadly, I cannot accept this nomination, and I prefer instead to stand with the egregiously overlooked. Wait for it, Mr. Tony Roberts, Mr. Michael Lurie, Miss Rachel York, Greg Jabara, Robin Wagner, who designed our sets, Willa Kim, who gave us our costumes, Jules Fisher and Peggy Eisenhower, our lighting, Rob Marshall, our choreography, Henry Mancini, Leslie Dickus, Frank Wildhorn, Blake Edwards, our producers, and the 75 other members of the Victor Victoria family. So we stand together in celebration of our show and of audiences like you who so kindly give us a standing ovation every single night. Thank you.
So far, there's been no comment from any member of the Tony nomination committee about Andrews' rejection. But once again, Julie Andrews says that she will not accept the nomination for the Tony at this point, and that she's very sad that so many of her colleagues were ignored, and that she could not have done this show on her own, and that she cannot accept the nomination. Once again, Julie Andrews says thanks, but no thanks to the Tony Awards committee.
Tornado warnings at the box office as Twister blows into town. And we eavesdrop
live to the Marquee Theater in Times Square, where Julie Andrews is popping off about the Tonys. But you have our lead story today. News over the way her musical has been treated by the folks who make the Tony nominations. Cynthia Tornquist is standing by at the Marquee Theater with all of the details. Cynthia?
Lauren, just a short time ago, Julie Andrews, who earned a Tony nomination for Best Actress for her performance in Victor Victoria, made a startling announcement. Following the curtain call at today's matinee, she told the audience she is refusing her nomination.
I have searched my conscience and my heart, and I find that, sadly, I cannot accept this nomination, and I prefer instead to stand with the egregiously overlooked.
Now, Andrews' announcement comes just 2 days after the Tony Awards committee announced its list of nominees for this year's Tony Awards. Now, Andrews was the only nomination for the nearly $9 million musical. The show is a stage adaptation of the 1982 film of the same name, which also starred Andrews and was written and directed by her husband, Blake Edwards. Tony Adams is one of the show's producers.
Did you try to talk her out of this decision?
We played devil's advocate in terms of every scenario and what might be best and what the upsides and what the downsides were. And at the end of the day, left it to her to make a very, very personal and very major and painful decision.
Also snubbed was the big-budget musical Big, an adaptation of the movie starring Tom Hanks. It received 5 nominations, but not the coveted Best Musical nomination. Those went to Rent and Bringin' the Noise, Bringin' the Funk. The other nominees were A Chronicle of a Death Foretold and Swinging on a Star, 2 shows that closed shortly after they opened.
The definition of entertainment is how many people come. And the fact is that Victor Victoria and Big have both been extremely successful with audiences.
The controversy has called the nominating system into question. Jed Bernstein, head of the League of American Theaters and Producers, which helps oversee the Tony Awards, defended the committee's decisions.
There is no scandal here. You know, the nominations committee wasn't caught using drugs. They weren't, the ballots were not miscounted. The issue here is that the taste of these 14 people differs than, let's call it, the popular taste.
I say they can go to hell. As for the Julie Andrews decision,
She will stay on the ballot and life goes on. And if she wins, in the same way, you know, Woody Allen has won some Academy Awards even though he's never attended one and proclaims not to be happy with the process.
the developments have also caused havoc for the producer of the Tony Awards telecast, who had expected to feature musical numbers from Victor Victoria and Big.
I don't think you have to be a brilliant producer to know that Julie Andrews' presence on the Tony Awards, it would be rather important to Broadway, to the theater, to people across the country. So obviously that would be something that I'd like to try to work out. Julie will have a lot to say about that too.
Okay. Well, now, Julie Andrews' decision, it must be especially heartbreaking for the actress. She has never won a Tony Award before, and many here on Broadway expected she would be a shoo-in for that award. Now, there's other breaking news coming from Broadway today. George C. Scott, who recently got a nomination himself for Best Actor for his performance in Inherit the Wind, is now not expected to return to the show. The 60-year-old actor remains in a hospital in California where he's undergoing tests. Reportedly, he is suffering from an an aortic aneurysm. As a result of the actor's absence, the posting notice has been posted for Inherit the Wind, and the show is expected to close May 19th. However, rumors tell us it may close as soon as this Sunday. We'll have more showbiz for you in just a moment.
Snubbing the Tony Awards because it snubbed her show, Victor Victoria. Andrews herself did receive a Tony nomination for her performance, but that was it for the successful musical. Just over an hour ago at today's matinee, Andrews, who has never gotten a Tony, rejected her nomination.
Victor Victoria is a collaboration between designers, choreographer, director, cast, and crew. An extremely happy and successful collaboration, which makes it especially sad that so many of my colleagues have been ignored by this year's nominating process. I could not have done this alone.
Although she has refused the nomination, her name is still on the Tony ballots, which were mailed out today. Tony's June 2nd.
Yeah, well, take that. And take this from
Irish Joe.
Sunshine.
Honors. The nominations include Donna Murphy, already. Oh, thanks. Good evening. An unforgettable moment on stage.
It was a bombshell on Broadway. Julie Andrews did what no other major star has ever done before, refused to accept a Tony nomination. Andrews was nominated for Best Actress in a Musical for her work in Victor Victoria. But the star felt cheated because all her colleagues in the Broadway blockbuster were overlooked. News Channel 4's Andrew Glassman was there when Julie Andrews stunned the house.
Broadway has never seen a curtain call quite like this.
I have searched my conscience and my heart, and I find that, sadly, I cannot accept this nomination, and I prefer instead to stand with the egregiously overlooked.
It was her first Tony nomination, and many felt Julie Andrews was the favorite to be named Best Actress in a Musical. She still may win.
There's no guarantee.
Because according to the Tony Awards, it's sad that a star of this magnitude has declined, but the ballots are going to be mailed out of this office later this week, and Julie Andrews' name will still be on them, whether she likes it or not.
Her name will be on the ballot. It will be in the hands of the 720 voters by the end of this week, and there is a possibility that she could win.
The 14-member committee, which decides on the nominees for Best Musical, snubbed Victor Victoria and other big-budget shows this year and favored less commercial productions like Rent and Bring in Denoise, Bring in Defunk, which received 10 and 9 nominations respectively. Andrew's stake in Victor Victoria is more than creative, it's financial as well. Her husband, Blake Edwards, is the show's writer and director. More Tony nominations could have meant more prestige and more box office. But the producer of the show says this decision is not about sour grapes.
This is a personal decision on Julie Andrews' part. Julie made the decision alone. She was nominated. How could it be sour grapes on her part?
Longtime critic Clive Barnes says Andrews was the sentimental and practical favorite to win. As for Victor Victoria as Best Musical,
I don't think the show is very good, but I think the Tony voters should have had a chance to have said that rather than the nominating committee.
In the past, 2 other actors tried to decline supporting actor nominations because they felt they were leads. This is the first time a major star has tried to bow out of the Tonys. Andrew Glassman, News Channel 4.
And Tony Adams, one of the lead producers of Victor Victoria, says there was still a chance the show might tape a number for the Tony Awards broadcast.
A News Channel 4 report on dangerous...
Now, normally nominations translate in the box office. Well, Best Musical means national TV exposure. In this case, however, turning the tables on Tony might be even more lucrative. And by the way, Julie Andrews is already on the Tony voting ballot, meaning though she refused the nomination, she can still win the award. It's also not known yet if she'll appear on the award show here on Channel 2 June 2nd.
We'll wait and see. Thank you very much, Dennis. There are new out.
Thank you, Jay. The saga of the man that New Yorkers know
for this award, so her name will still appear on the ballot. No matter to her, in her own dramatic way, this leading lady nominee has already had her say.
I say they can go to hell!
The Tony Awards will be handed out June 2nd. In Midtown, Sharon Diesenhouse, New York 1.
The Tony nominating committee has elected not to comment on Andrews' decision.